Speaker.
The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, there was a former politician who once said, "There are doctors who make you well and there are those who make you sick." I think Dr Hutchison has just made a very interesting contribution, and I thank him for the words that he said about our former security guard here in this Parliament. That was a very, very good thought. But unfortunately, the National Party led the Wednesday debate off today by the Brains Trust, Anne Tolley, who started off by quoting Dr Seuss. Well, I think she'd be better off going back and reading Alice in Wonderland. And there is a very appropriate saying that I could use at this point. The March Hare said, "I have an excellent idea, let's change the subject." And I say to the National Party, how about changing the subject? Because the whole day has been about talking about Labour. Look, I know we are a fascinating party, but how about after 4 years talking about some of the things the National Party are actually doing in government? And, Mr Speaker, one of the advantages of being a backbencher sitting where I am, I've had the opportunity to sit and observe the behaviour of the government benches. And I have to tell you, I have been watching very closely and listening very closely, and they are becoming more bizarre by the day. As soon as they can get it out of this place, the ministers scurry out the door, their coats flapping, their feet spinning, because they're increasingly impatient about being held to account by the Speaker and by the opposition in this Parliament. They're finding it a nuisance, and it's all rather pesty being questioned by oppositions. And what is interesting to me is to watch the Prime Minister. He has changed very much since he was in government in the last 3 years. He's increasingly become very slap-happy in his answers and increasingly become slapstick, because he puts on a comic show for the public every day. And when he cracks a joke, he looks around at his party, and every now and then he gets a lone clap from some hapless backbencher. Then he looks up to the press gallery. Are they admiring him? The Prime Minister is putting more heads down in the National Party than ever before. And yet we've got ministers who are busy being busy, rushing here, rushing there. But the truth is, they are increasingly become a party that is divided on itself. You've got the insiders and you've got the outsiders. You've got the onsiders and the offsiders. And then you've got divided leadership. You see smouldering away there are the hopes and aspirations of Bill English, who really thinks he ought to be the leader. Then you've got divided priorities, those who want social change, those who don't. And then you've got a divided government, divided into these little parties that support them, who are being sent off because they can't agree with the government. And all the while, the Prime Minister has been saying that everything is very stable. No worries. He said we provide strong and stable government. We're working hard to take the country forward and deliver strong and stable government, just as we did over the last 3 years. Well, I have to say we have a more unstable government now than we have had in many, many years. And people are starting to notice it. The commentators are starting to notice it. They've started to notice that the Prime Minister has lost his touch, his ability that he had to pull those little parties towards him and hold them in a government. He's losing that touch. He's losing his touch with the public. And I was interested to read in the Management magazine very recently, where they wrote this, a management magazine which normally supports the National Party. Key's disinclination to share his vision suggests a lack of willingness to commit and a reluctance to be honest about future intentions. That intent suggests a leadership approach based on knowing what's best and believing that what's best is not for sharing. That is what we are increasingly seeing from the Prime Minister. And they are increasingly getting out of touch with the public as well. And I tell members to read the latest Housing New Zealand newsletter that came out today. They're so out of date. they have provided a lovely little recipe for carrot and ginger soup for all their clients, but no information as to how they can contact them.
Nikki Kay.
Mr. Speaker,